Hey everybody, St. Paul Peterson here, and welcome to another episode of Music on the Run. It's absolutely beautiful here in Minneapolis now, and I'm standing outside of my childhood home. There's a good reason for that. My next guest, not only is he an incredible studio musician and first call keyboard player to go on tours all over the world with all the biggest artists, he happens to be my brother, and we grew up here. Ricky Peterson is my guest on Music on the Run, and that's next. Hey everybody, St. Paul here, and welcome to another episode of Music on the Run. My guest today is the first call keyboard player, not only in the studio, but also as a touring musician.
Yes.
He's a solo artist, he's a producer, he's a writer, and he happens to be my big brother. Welcome, Ricky Peterson.
No,
to the
thanks,
program.
brother.
Hi,
Thank you for
brother.
inviting me. It's my
Here.
brother. Doing a podcast. Cheers to you. What's
cheers.
going on?
Well,
This is awful good. I like your podcast. It's really
thanks.
fun, man. You did a great job with everybody so far.
yeah, well, you got to hear this because last week we did a contest, and I asked the listener base, who do they want to see me interview next? And the resounding result was my brother, Ricky Peterson.
That's so weird, man. That's great. Wow.
What are you doing to keep yourself busy on the COVID watch here?
Hunkering down. I'm home and staying home and doing what I can to help out other people and making music, man, as much as possible, And
we have to share this story.
Yeah.
Because we were in New York
yeah, that's right.
We were in New York on March 12th, right before this stuff went crazy. He was doing a gig at the Beacon Theater, and I was down at the Iridium, and we ended up flying home together the next day. We had planned on...
I believe it was the 12th, March 12th.
Is that what it was?
March 12th, we were there. That was right when it started, and then we flew home on the 13th.
Right. I remember having to,
Yeah.
just to cover our butts in case they were going to shut down flights. We didn't
Right,
know
we
what
wanted
was
to get
going on.
out right away.
We rented a car
Yeah.
in case to drive back to Minneapolis
Right.
from New York, but we didn't end up having to do that. So after that, New York absolutely shut down. And I know that you and I kind of were concerned about that, and so we kind of quarantined for a couple of weeks.
First of all, we both did different gigs on the same night. Paul played at the Iridium and with the Minneapolis Funk All-Stars, St. Paul and the Minneapolis Funk All-Stars, and I played with the New York Rocks, Love Rocks New York it was called.
Eat that mic a little bit more,
Yeah.
brother. I'm not
Yeah.
getting a good level on you.
Okay. Anyways, Love Rocks New York which is a thank you.
I'm the only crew member here today, so I'm running cameras, 1, 2, 3, and I got Pro Tools running in the background.
Got my good side on that side. Thank you very much.
But
Anyways,
we want to make sure that we can hear you. So
Yeah, that's
I didn't want to go through an hour and it not be working. So
right on.
what were you saying?
I was saying nothing.
Why don't we,
I'm sure it was boring. We were in New York together. We played at two different places in the same night, and Paul played the Iridium
Right.
with the St. Paul and the Minneapolis All-Stars,
Yep.
Funk All-Stars, and I played Love Rocks New York at the Beacon Theater.
Right.
And there's so many people were around at that time. And, you never know, a few people got ill. Hopefully they didn't get the COVID, but,
Right.
we all kind of survived that and dodged some bullets. So that was pretty amazing to come home and not be sick with anything, man.
Thank
Because
God.
it really hit the fan hard, man.
New York was
Yeah,
or still is at this point.
No, it's like the thing,
epicenter,
man.
yeah.
So, anyways, I'm glad to be here with you, and this is fun, man.
So I
is
get my
great.
brother. I find my first family member. I get on the show. Finally, we will get the rest of the family members on here. I think
Okay,
we should
good.
do a
We should do a whole family thing.
Yeah,
it'd be
exactly
great.
right.
It'd be great.
But since you were requested,
That's awfully cool.
we want to talk to you a little bit about your career, and we want to talk to you about what you just got done doing. Why don't we start there? You just spent 2 years
I did.
with Fleetwood Mac.
I did.
How did that all transpire?
Well, Fleetwood Mac, they have
by
some.
the way, I'm sporting.
Yes, you are. Thank you for that.
Sporting
By
the
the
gear
way,
that he gave me.
they've had some drama in their history, and in this particular case, they hired a couple of brand new main members as Mike Campbell on guitar and Neil Finn from Crowded House for lead singing. And in the interim, they hired me because I've been playing with Stevie Nicks for the last 13 years.
Wow, that's right.
And so it just happened that it all kind of coincided together when they were rehearsing and auditioning, I guess. They're auditioning people. And I was there when they were auditioning people. We were all in Hawaii. I'm sorry about that. But
So you were auditioning people in the worst possible
yeah.
conditions,
Anyways, we were there, and I was there, and I happened to be on vacation, so they asked me to come and help, and all the puzzle pieces came together, and I was able to go and be the keyboard player for Fleetwood Mac, man, along with, of course, Christine McVie.
Of course.
Yeah. So
how does that work out? Does she tell you what to play, or is it kind of, how does that all transpire?
You know what? I sit and listen to what she's playing, first of all. I think that's the biggest thing, because she is the keyboard player. She's the main keyboard player that's done all the records and done everything. And what you do is you support her. I'm supporting her, and I'm in the background doing what I do, and is whatever she doesn't want to do, I'll do. It's just it's really fun, man. I had a ball doing it because it was just and we love each other. Everybody in that band had so much love for each other. It was unbelievable. Wow. There was no animosity towards anybody. So everybody was just like, and everybody played their butts off, man. It was unbelievable. We had such a great band, or we have such a great band. But obviously, it's not happening right now. But hopefully, it'll happen again soon.
So every tour is shut down.
Everything is shut down. There's talk of maybe doing a few Stevie gigs at the end of the year coming up. I'm not sure.
Fingers
yes,
crossed.
please. Wow. And of course, there's other things happening. Studio stuff is happening all the time. We're able to do, like Paul and I are doing some work from our homes, and luckily we were together in New York, so we can kind of hang
together.
out. We can kind of hang out a little bit.
Yeah,
but we're 4 feet. Sorry, not 6 feet.
No,
so
but
no letters, please.
Oh, we'll get the letters anyway. But we've been together since the whole thing broke out. So
Yeah, exactly right.
What are you gonna do?
And luckily we haven't. We didn't get sick. So, anyways, and all that aside, we're hoping that music will start. As soon as October, I'm hoping, going out and doing some other things. Well, I think that you're working on some virtual music things, and I'm working on virtual music things that everybody's doing videos now, that is going out on YouTube and what have you. And,
right.
So, I mean, that's great because you turned me onto a couple with who was it that we did it with? We did
Sheen Lake and Nathan East.
Nathan East was great, man.
And
was
Lenny
so
Castro.
fun. Lenny Castro. Oh,
Joey
bad
Finger.
boy.
Yeah.
Joey Finger, all the cats, man. Anyways, so far so good. That was fun. So we just got to do more of that.
Do you think this is going to be more of a creative period? Do you think that there's going to be a lot of records coming out of this whole,
Absolutely.
Quarantine?
Why not? What's great about it is everybody who played on everybody's records. I mean, of course we love to make money doing this stuff, but we don't care anymore. I mean, we're just playing on everybody's records because we want to play, and hopefully
you miss playing.
We miss playing. Everybody misses playing, man. I mean, we want to play together, and if it takes doing it on a video, we might as well do it in any way we can. And God forbid the 5G is going to be able to do us with no latency.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh my God!
You know what I found is really cool about this is that
I hate 5G. I hate even the concept of it. But anyways,
we aren't going to go there. This is not
we
that
won't
kind
do
of
that.
podcast.
Yeah, anyways,
being able to reach out
to use it for that, it'd be great.
To what? For the speed
of course,
being able
speed
to
of
do stuff
music
at the same
yeah.
time. It's true.
Yeah.
It's great to be able to reach out to folks that maybe we haven't played with in the past to engage in these cool little musical things that we've been producing. And was able to do that with Nathan East and
which
those
was
guys.
cool.
And that was so much fun.
Well, you were at the NAMM show when you did all that stuff at the EV booth, correct?
That's true. That was unbelievable. But it's so fun to be able to be creative during this time. And here we are sitting in the studio that you've had for
20 odd years, 30 years, something like that. Yeah. It's downtown. It's one of the first studios built in Minneapolis, by the way. Mr. Bruce Swedien is the guy that built this studio out of, I think it was a vaudevillian theater or whatever. They were doing some kinds of plays in here or whatever, and it turned into a movie theater. And then after that, in the early 50s, he came in here and turned it into a recording studio. So mid-50s, Mom and Dad came here, and they were doing commercials, and they were doing all sorts of stuff for like, can we say different things?
Why not? Sure.
Ham's Beer, Grain Belt, all the beer commercials.
Northwest Orient.
Airlines. That was Daddy, actually. He wrote that.
He wrote that, didn't get credit for it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Don't you hate that?
Bastards.
Jeez.
That's right. This is a podcast. We can cuss on here, can't we?
If you want.
If you
cuss
want.
as much as
Cuss! No. Anyways, so there's a lot of history in this building, and God bless him. It's Bruce Swedien, man, of Michael Jackson fame and Quincy Jones. Built this, and we've kept it going for all these years, and have been able to make music and do what we've done, and here.
Yeah.
So,
and happy belated birthday to
Bruce Swedien. Yeah, happy birthday, Bruce.
Yeah.
That's right.
So let's go all the way back.
All right.
So
Stop banging the table too.
I know. Stop banging that.
By the way, excuse me.
Yeah. Tulips on the table.
Yeah, tulips on the table.
Put the tulips on your organ.
Well, not right now.
Okay. Not on the podcast.
This is where they go. Anyway, they go on the organ. Anyways, okay.
So because I'm your brother, I know these stories, but I think people will be fascinated to hear about how you got started and decided to pursue music as a living. Did you have a choice? How did you?
Well, we all grew up. All grew up in a house that had music going on all the time. Mom and Dad had rehearsals going on all the time. You were a baby,
right?
And I was growing up, and I know that they were doing like rehearsals, and Dad would be doing demos for commercials downstairs with his little tape recorder, and he'd have a couple of singers down there. He'd be on the piano, and they would be doing demos for these things. And so I was always interested in watching that happen because I like the little intricacies of recording and seeing, all that cool shit that was going on. Yeah. So it was like it was inevitable that I would get into that scene. But besides music, just having pianos and organs all over the house, we were able to go down and tinker with them, So you go down there and you're hearing by ear. I'm playing things, with one finger and going downstairs on the piano. I'll never forget Mom downstairs asking me from the laundry room when we had the piano that was in the window that faces out by the, the backyard.
Yep.
And I was playing with two fingers playing. It was Help by the Beatles.
Really?
Yeah, I think I'm 60. What year was that? 64, 5 maybe? Or was it later than that? Can't remember. Anyways. And I think it was 6 or 7. I was boom, ding, 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 boom, ding, 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 boom, ding, 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 ding. I'd bite my fingers because I'd mess it up. And my mom said
self-punishment.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be mad.
You're so mad at
myself.
No.
True. So she yells from the laundry room and goes, "Honey, do you want to play piano?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Do you want to take lessons?" And I said, "Sure." Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was, and the rest is history.
Where did you take lessons?
So we went to, we were in Catholic school for 8 years, and I wasn't quite there yet, but as soon as I got in there, we took lessons from the school next door, which is Holy Angels, from the nuns. And the nuns taught us piano. They were great teachers, though, I have to say. A lot of them taught, the ones that taught me theory were wonderful. They taught me so much, and it was very interesting to me to listen to theory and learn and play by ear and be able to learn how to read music. And my main teacher, who was, I won't mention her name, but she was a really good teacher, but she was very, very Catholic.
Strict?
Very strict.
She get the ruler out?
No rulers, but she would get mad at me because I would be playing, and I didn't really practice the lesson, and I was kind of I was a Heffalf, I'm saying? Yes. And I would get to the lesson and not really know it, and she would get so frustrated. She would get me off the chair and sit down and play it, and it's like this. And I went, oh.
You'd memorize it.
Memorize it when she was playing it. So I got by with that one. Is that my nose doing that?
You skated through that one, didn't you?
Well, okay, a little bit. 8 years of classical piano training, and it was to no avail. Really.
I think it was a good backbone for you, though.
Oh man, are you kidding me? It kept me limber anyway, And the good part about it was learning all the theory and being able to go to the University of Minnesota and doing theory classes and doing theory contests. We go in and have to have contests, and of course back then it was in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
They would sit you down and they would make you. They would play a scale, and you would have to name all the notes, and you'd have to go.
It was a test.
It was a test, absolutely a test. You'd have to name the intervals. You'd have to name the scale, what the name of the scale was, what the chord structure was, that kind of stuff. It was great, man. I mean, it was really a great teaching utensil for me, anyway.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about the genres that you've played throughout your career, and I think you've played them all. How does that
Jack of all trades?
Well, how does that happen? Because I know the family we grew up in was primarily a jazz family, but since we're the youngest set,
right,
you were hearing a bunch of different things from our brothers and sisters.
Right, we grew up with rock and pop music. I mean, that's what we did. My mom and dad, they loved jazz, and they were their pop music was jazz. It was more 40s and 50s, not real straight ahead bebop stuff, but it was more big bandy kind of in that era, and that was their pop music. We grew up with Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, Well, I did anyway. I don't know
I'm
if
trying
you
to
did.
think of his name. B.J. Thomas.
B.J. Thomas, man. Absolutely.
Why do I know that?
I don't know, because we liked to sing it.
I did.
Yeah, we liked to sing it. He sang so good. He was soulful, man. He really was soulful good. I dug him. Anyways, that kind of stuff. We grew up with that, and the Monkees and the Beatles, and loved all that music, and helped us learn how to write some pretty cool stuff. I mean, with the two combo of the two, the jazz, and then they got into rock and roll, and there was Emerson, Lake and Palmer, all the keyboard guys that loved playing organs. So I'd be listening to all the guys who had organ people.
When does Todd run
organ people, organ players?
Organ people? You're one of them, by the way. Yeah.
Am I?
You're an organ.
I'm an organ person.
Organ people.
I have organs.
So when does Todd Rundgren enter the picture?
Well, he was he did a long, in the 70s. He was there in the 70s. He was the piano player, but he was the songwriter.
You loved him.
Oh God, yeah, I loved him. I grew up with him.
Right.
Soulful boy from Philadelphia. Him, and of course then finding out later Daryl Hall and John Oates. He had produced Daryl Hall and John Oates' first record.
Right.
And of course Daryl sounded just like him, I thought, kind of.
Right.
But they kind of grew up in that same era, that blue-eyed soul thing. So I love that, and of course I love Stevie Wonder, and then you listen to all this totally, eclectically different stuff, man.
Yeah.
I would listen to crazy stuff. I'd go from Led Zeppelin to Emerson, Lake and Palmer to Coltrane. It's like, what?
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's like, that's why I'm a mess.
No, that's why you know all these things and can say yes to all these gigs.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
I'm
I'm very, very blessed, man, to be able to do what we're doing and go out and play different kind of music, different genres, and mentioning like David Sanborn and George Benson and people like that who I love playing music with because they, what they've taught me and being able to say that I actually played with them and maybe even produced them, which is a pretty cool thing. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about Rocking Horse.
Rocking Horse was the first big rock band that I was in. There was the first rock band that we had when I was in mid-high school, probably 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Yeah, that would be high school.
Yep.
And it was a great band with bombs and smoke and all sorts of stuff, man.
Really?
But we were doing all the Yes, ELP. We were doing Yours Is No Disgrace. You guys remember that song? That was, I don't know if you would know that.
I don't know that
That's
one,
a great big I think it was a whole side of a record, man, that Yes did. That was great.
Huh.
What do we call those? That would be a musical term. Come on. We can pull it out of our butt. I don't know what it is. Anyway.
I don't either.
That's how smart we are today. It goes in spurts, you know. We can be smart for a minute, and then it goes.
And then she's gone.
And then it goes away really quick.
It was gone.
Terribly quick, yeah. Anyways, that's what we played in that band, and we had the best time. Of course, we were growing up. We were teenagers, bad boys. You know, we'd be running around, and we had our own bus. And, of course, I had to drive it.
Did you?
Well, yes.
All right.
Not good.
Oh,
Not
boy.
good. But I drove it really well. That's what made me such a professional, brother. I was.
Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. They would have me driving
Training
the bus
grounds.
because, yes, that was training ground for me.
Got it.
And we would, you know, it's just the 5-state area. We would do gigs, and that was really a good learning experience for me to find out really what was going on as far as like. And this is when I borrowed Mom's organ. She had an M3, a Hammond M3, which is a little spinet, funky ass organ.
Oh, yeah.
And I would take that. I mean, in the beginning, I would take it without her knowing.
Sorry,
I thought,
Oh, yeah.
well, you know, but she'd be gigging, so I'd leave for the day, and I don't know if she'd even come home and walk by it and go upstairs and not even notice that it was gone. I don't know, but anyways,
She knew.
Of course she did, and for that matter, a great story about Mom in that era was when we first got a synthesizer. You know, our family got a synthesizer. I told her
You
about
got it.
I got her
Because
to
you
buy
loved it.
us. I loved it so much, and I told her, Mom, this is such a great instrument that
What is it? What
it was
what
a mini
it?
Moog. It was a mini Moog. Yeah. It was the serial number was 2000 at the time. That was
Wow.
that was like one of the first ones made, the first one in Minneapolis anyway that anybody owned. And my mom bought it. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Mom. And I was sat there and I've learned that thing, man, and we had the best time with it anyways. So needless to say, that was all the Emerson, Lake and Palmer and the Yes and the, you know, all the different rock bands that had keyboard players in it that had played synthesizers and that stuff. So that was Rocking Horse, and then it just moved on.
You started playing organ at that early age. So you've
I
been
did. I
playing organ
loved
your-
it. Yeah.
Your entire
I
life.
just loved it, man.
But it was rock organ because
Yeah.
people know you as, some people know you as a funk
It's
monster
R&B.
on the organ,
Oh,
on
that's
everything.
nice. Thank you.
But here you are playing with the biggest rock band in the world.
Stuff that I loved. I grew up with it.
You grew,
know?
but you loved all these different genres, so it's
did.
not far off the path.
Exactly right. And I enjoyed listening to all of it, man. I really did. It wasn't like, you know, of course you grow up and you can be a kind of a bastard and be like poo-poo and stuff all the time and going, that stuff sucks. And then, you know, but if you hang around people
Right.
like that, then you're going to be like that. So you try to listen to everything and get it in your brain and go, well, okay, I see the love in it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and it takes a lifetime to get to that point where you can actually sit and listen to everything, find the love. You know what I mean?
Right. No, it's true.
It
You got to
is
make
true.
that your own
Yeah.
because you've got so many different influences coming in, whether it's Jimmy
Exactly.
Smith or
Yeah.
guys from
Which I
the-
love, of course.
Keith Emerson or whatever.
Oh,
but
God.
you
Isn't
made
that
it
funny,
your
man?
own, and that's why you're a first call keyboard player
well,
in the
thank you,
studio and
brother.
on the road. So you just didn't wake up one day and touring with all these rock stars. You paid your dues. Tell me a little bit about some of the bands that you played with early on.
Growing up, after the Rocking Horse debut and the end of that, kind of towards the end of high school, I got into starting to play more of the poppy R&B funk kind of stuff. And we had a band called Emerald
Okay.
with Patty, our sister, and with a great bunch of guys. They're all older than me. You know, they were in their 20s, and I was still a young kid at the time. But that was another learning experience for me. And we did that through, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And then after that, I found a band called, what was it? The Shortcake with Sparky Bement and,
There you go.
John Finger and Dan Fashing and all these just great musicians. And that went on, and we were doing Steely Dan and, you know, all the little more difficult songs and that kind of thing. And then that went on to another R&B band called Good Vibrations with Rocky Robbins and
Oh man, Josh Weaver on bass.
Josh Weaver on bass, and we went on, just kind of kept going and going, and this is where I was introduced to some people. Billy, our brother, was playing jazz with people like Ben Sidran, and this is where I was introduced to Ben Sidran in the early '80s. And he would come out, and he was trying to do a little bit more R&B, jazzy, funky kind of stuff, and he would hire me to come in and program for him. And
in the studio.
Right, okay. Exactly. Yeah. Well, he's
so
the one.
This time you were still doing studio sessions.
We're doing studio. Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes back. That's a whole other thing. During all that time that I'm talking about, I'm in the studio singing jingles too with Patty and all the people here in Minneapolis. You know, who are doing Dairy Queen commercials and Salituda, that kind of stuff. All the good one, Anyways, Salituda. It's like if I was the king of the forest. That's my okay. Anyways,
so you're session boy during day
and going and playing at night, and yes, it
class action too.
Class action, okay. Absolutely. It's the same genre of music, and that was during the disco times, and then class action went away, and then we started a band with Doug Maynard. They were already, he had already had a band, and then I would play with his band that turned into the TC Jammers, and then it went on from that. But now back to Ben Sidran, he's the one that would come out and see us play, and he loved watching us, and he was fascinated by the grooves and all that stuff. So that's why he came in and got us to come in and start playing grooves for him, because he wanted to go that route. And now at that time, he introduced me to Tommy LaPuma. And Tommy LaPuma, who is, of course, the jazz virtuoso producer, who did George Benson's first big record. He did Barbra Streisand's record. Right. He did
Diana Krall.
Just all sorts of people. But the nicest guy in the world. The poor guy had to come and to meet me. Ben brought him to meet me, which was hilarious because my brother Billy and I lived in a place we called the Portland Arms.
Oh, yeah.
So the Portland Arms is right down here in Minneapolis, South Minneapolis, and the place was not beautiful.
It was funky.
It was
super funky.
I think I had Fred the mouse living in my mattress.
You had neighbors, and they were mice.
But this was the only place that you would walk into that was so ghetto. But it was a triplex,
right?
And Dudley owned it,
right?
And anyways, so Portland Arms was a place in South Minneapolis that was pretty funky, but it was the only place that we had. Billy and I lived there with a couple other people. It was a triplex. There were different apartments in there, but we were the only guys who had kind of a ghetto house that had the front porch was completely broken.
Yeah.
And you could easily fall down before you get into our door.
Right.
But you open our door and there's a beautiful, lovely C7 grand Yamaha piano with a B3 in the corner, a set of drums, great amplifiers, about 8 basses, a huge television set. I mean, this is after we had made some money and did pretty good in doing commercials and stuff.
Right.
And a Corvette out front.
So Ben brought Tommy
to
the Portland Arms.
Portland Arms, and this is what Tommy LaPuma walked up and he went, "What the hell are you bringing me to, man?" He said, "Ben, what is this?" He said, "This is where the guys live, And here he opens that front. And poor Tommy he had a bad leg, so it was scary for him to kind of walk towards our front door because the whole porch
it was booby trapped.
Yeah, it was kind of booby trapped.
The whole
it was
thing
bad.
was.
He could have gone right through the floor, and we wouldn't have known it. He's a little man. Anyways,
where's Tommy? I don't know.
Just disappeared. So I opened the front door, and Tommy just went. He had this one little gesture that he would always do.
Yeah.
And he just walked in and was so elated, and we sat and we played music and we had a ball. And from then on, we became very, very good friends. And the whole point was that Ben wanted to produce a record for me with Tommy's blessing, and we ended up doing one for Warner Brothers in 1989. And Ben was a part of that, a huge part of me introducing me to all these great musicians, because of that scene, because of Tommy LaPuma. It was Tommy and Ben who introduced me to Sanborn, and then it went on. It just kind of domino effect,
Ben told me a story when I interviewed him for the podcast that he went and interviewed Miles Davis with Tommy, and after that interview, they stopped by Pat Rain's house.
Right.
Pat Rain said he was looking for a keyboard player for David Sanborn.
Exactly right.
And Ben said, "I've got your guy."
Yeah. That's
what year is that?
Right. 83 and a half, or 84, maybe, the beginning of 1984.
And you were in Samoa at this time, right?
I think it was Samoa. Okay. Yes, very good.
You got the call from New York.
Was it Samoa or was it TC Jammers? I can't remember.
I think Samoa, because I was subbing for you and coming in. I was probably playing in Samoa at that time when I was in high school with you.
I thought it was anyways, doesn't matter. Samoa probably was, because that was over at Felty's.
Yep.
Yes. And what was going to be your question, so I can go on from there?
So that was 83 and a half.
Yeah, 84. And
you got the call. Did you have to audition?
I did.
For Sidran? I'm sorry, for Sanborn?
Sanborn called me after that, and he said, "Can you put a band together for me?" And it kind of was my audition anyway. And he wanted me to put a band together, and I put a band together in Minnesota and made a demo tape of one of his songs. And we did it at Metro Studios, and it was Gordy, me, Billy. I had Billy on bass, and then I think I had
Billy, our brother.
Yeah, Billy, our brother. And did you play bass on it too?
I think. I can't remember.
I think you might have done a pass on it. Anyways, and I think Kenny Holman was playing saxophone, playing alto. And we did Run for Cover. Is that what that was?
I think so.
Yeah. Anyways, we did that song and sent it to him, and of course, he loved what I was doing, so that was kind of my audition for that scene.
Right.
And he brought me out to New York, and he said, "Okay, well, thanks for doing that."
Right.
He did. He thought it was great, and everybody played their butt off. They could have done that gig in a heartbeat, and but he wanted a little bit more close to his home in New York. So we ended up having auditions for other players in New York, and we did that. And it was Hiram Bullock was kind of spearheading that one, at that time. And Hiram was good, the guitar player. Why David wanted me to try to put a band together here in Minnesota. He just wanted to see what I could do. So I think it was my audition. So. And that's how that became. And then I was with David for 30 years after that. And when Hiram left, I became the musical director for him. So,
right.
Or helpful anyway in musical directing.
But while you're doing all this stuff on the road, you made this record for Warner's. That was a huge success in the jazz / R&B
It was called adult contemporary at the time.
Right.
And then it turned into a smooth jazz effect. And shortly after that, there was no smooth jazz, and it was kind of adult contemporary, I think it was called. And so I was juggling, and then Ben introduced us to Steve Miller.
Right.
Talk about juggling, man. It was like, really.
Sanborn, your own solo career, Steve Miller Band, and you did a record with Steve.
And at the time, I was at Paisley Park with Prince too. I was juggling all four of these things. Yeah.
Time out.
That's a whole nother story.
You have to go back to one thing, because I think you omitted one
pretty important one
thing. Yeah, about 79, you get a phone call to join a certain band. Tell me about that.
Oh boy, yeah. See, we forgot about that one. Well, that's 1979. Prince. I was in the band with Doug
Can I do
Maynard.
one thing here?
Yeah.
I'm gonna little brother myself here. There we go. Yeah. Okay, my chair was higher than Ricky's.
That's okay.
I
got the Grandpa Gee's chair, so I can be comfortable.
Okay, so Prince called you.
Well, what happened is that I had been rehearsing. He'd had rehearsals in the house that they had in Edina, and he also had a little rehearsal hall that was called Dell's Tire Mart.
Okay,
and that was on Seven Corners in St. Paul and the kind of the border of St. Paul and Minneapolis. Anyways, I would go with Jimmy Bowman, over to the house in Edina and jam with Prince. And he knew him. He was hanging with these guys at this time. And Jimmy and I were friends for years since we were kids. And so I'd be in the basement and we'd be playing. We had a ball. We had fun. Prince never really thought anything of it, but he really had fun. I got smiles from him when I was playing with him and was jamming. I'd go in there and jam with him, and that was the size of it. Not thinking anything about it. We were probably trying to look for some other extracurricular things to do, and of course that household never had it. But anyways, we would we would go down there and have fun, have a few beers, and play. And one day, this is after about 2 or 3 times, they brought me upstairs. He and Owen Husney was his manager at the time.
Right.
And those guys brought me into the living room, and they asked me if I'd be interested in playing with the band, which would be the Revolution, I would think, at that time. Yeah. Or beginning of it, anyway.
Right, the beginnings of it. I don't think he actually called it anything.
No, he didn't really have it, but I think it was the beginnings of Revolution.
Absolutely right.
Anyways, and I had to walk away and think about it. I wasn't, I'd love to do that. And this is right when Prince was putting out For You. This is after he had recorded that. 79, right? I think
Sound
1979. He did it all at Sound 80, where we did all our commercials. And I remember him being across the hall when we were singing "In the Land of Dairy Queen." He's in there going,
playing everything,
playing all these,
doing everything.
But anyways, so I thought about it. I was playing with that other band, and I loved doing that. And I was about to go play with Good Vibrations, I think, again, or something. Was it that time? I can't remember. It's so long ago. I was playing with. Anyways, I turned him down. That was the bottom line. I said, nah, I don't want to do it, because I knew what it entailed. I knew that I had to sit and play exactly what he wanted and have to, do dance steps and do all sorts of stuff. I knew that was what it would involve.
I would have loved to seen that.
It would have never happened,
man.
Come on.
I would have loved that.
Not gonna do it, brother.
Come on.
You could do it way much better, way better than I could.
Put on the fishnets.
Not a coordinated man.
Put on
when
the
it comes to
fishnets.
that. Yeah, put on the fishnet stockings and a mask.
I would have given so much money to see that, Big Brother.
It's just terrible. Anyways, that was that one. That turned down.
But you fast forward 10, 15 years.
Yeah, 10, 15 years. He and I always, right after Purple Rain came out, I'd go see him, and I would be, he would say, of course, let Ricky in. He'd be, he's part of the deal. So I'd go, and I'll never forget, I went to Chicago and saw him do the first Purple Rain. We went over to the old Met Center and watched him rehearse Purple Rain.
Yep.
I thought it was the coolest thing that I ever saw in my life, because he had the props, where he would pop up on one side, and 2 seconds later he's on the other side. And people were like, it was wonderful. Anyway, but he enjoyed my company when I was there. He eventually invited me to come to Paisley Park and do some stuff over there, and we ended up, after I went there, because Tom Tucker, our friend. I mean, there's a lot of history here that we could go on. There's 8,000 different stories that could go on. But Tom and I ended up working together as a team, recording other people, and we would go in to Paisley Park because it was the only great studio in town.
You rented Paisley Park.
We would go in and rent, and then we ended up, I think Tom actually helped build and get all the equipment for these guys because he was very into that, and he had just moved to the Twin Cities, I think. Probably not just, but this is something that he could do. He could run the studio part of it. And he did that, and of course, we were best friends, and I was working on a lot of stuff, so I would eventually just came in there, and I knew everybody in the building.
Right.
And they just open-armed me and said, come on up. We have a room upstairs for you, man. So I had a room at Paisley Park from 1990 through 98 or something like that, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. I can't remember the real dates, you guys, but something like that.
I think you were out of there. I say we because I've moved in with you. He said, little brother, why don't you come and hang out with me? Yeah. So that's how I went back in to Paisley, was because of his relationship with Prince. But you were, long story short, he made you a staff producer at Paisley Park, did he not?
He did. He gave me threw me a couple of bones, man, is what he did, because I was in there with David Z for years. David Z is another person that I hung out with for many, many years and did a lot of great music with. And that, of course, is Bobby Z's brother, who was the drummer with the Revolution.
Right.
And so David and I did a lot of productions together, including the Jets. That was
Fine Young Cannibals.
Fine Young Cannibals, and we did Colin Young, a bunch of different cool things. And he knew that I was in there, and I was working. I was working every other studio and doing that, and then juggling, playing with you, playing with Sanborn, and then playing
Steve
with
Miller Band.
Yeah. And my career, and going to Japan with Ben and doing that stuff, and Sadao Watanabe, and anyways, it was a wonderful time for me. Hectic as hell, is obviously.
You were busy. You were working.
It was great, and what a wonderful experience for me to be able to do that, and then share it with Paul. Paul came in, and this is after Paul had his little maybe a spat, as we would call it.
Go listen to episode 1 if you want to know what he's talking about.
Yeah, the family and Prince, and Paul had his own career at the time, but I wasn't very welcome in the Paisley Park, so I kind of snuck him in a few times just to play on some of the tracks that I was doing for Prince.
He sure did.
So I was producing. When I said he threw me a bone, he would throw me a bone. Like the first bone he threw was was Mavis Staples was one of them. Nona Gay.
Yeah.
There was a few other ones too. And then when he heard that stuff and went, wow, that's pretty smoking, he enjoyed what we had done to that. And Paul's playing bass on this stuff, and I don't think he knew that.
Probably not. Probably not.
And he loved every minute of it. But as soon as he found out who it was, because I'm sure he had to see the roster of people on the record, right?
He didn't kick me out. He let me stay.
No
That was
way.
nice of you to let me come and hang out with
Well,
your
of
brother.
course. Anyways, we had to get that aired out anyway. So that ended up doing... he handed me a cassette tape of The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, and it had some garbled keyboards on it, and it had his guitar part and all his vocals, and it was like, I couldn't decipher really what it was. But I asked one of the engineers, one of the techs, I said, and Tom Tucker, I said, do you guys really think this is a hit? And they said, it's a smash, trust us. And I'm like, okay. So I took it and I deciphered what I thought he was going for, which ended up pretty much an arrangement of mine.
Yeah.
That ended up being The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, which was his last #1 hit.
Jeez.
Yeah, and probably one of the biggest hits that he ever had, that he did out of the Warner Brothers contract. He did it with a company called Bellmark.
Okay.
And that was the only one when he was wearing Tav Cap on his, or Slave.
It was
and we
Slave.
called him Tav Cap because he was the artist
formerly known as Prince.
Tav Cap. Anyway. So anyways, there's my Prince story. So that went on, and I was at Paisley Park for years, and we ended up producing very many groups there, including George Benson. Of course, Paul was there for all that.
Favorite record I've ever done with you was that one.
Oh, God, it was so
Besides
great.
our own stuff, of course.
Oh, man, yeah. And, of course, I did all my records there, and he produced most of them, and just because I can't do it all.
I hear you.
I need help.
He produced my first record,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, so anyways, that was a great thing for both of us to be able to be a part of. I mean, that was history, man. All that was history. Kind of before.
We got to share that.
Yeah, we did.
That was fun.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
Don't
we're
touch
touching.
me.
We're touching.
Stop it! Don't touch me, brother.
Stop touching me.
So
Anyways.
you left in 1996.
Yeah, I left in 1996, and of course I was still with David Sanborn at the time. Some other opportunities came up during the 2000s. You're going to have to help me, but I know I came up in
Boss Skaggs.
Got a lot of different little things like that, and they weren't long runs. I did John Mayer for a year. I did the Continuum record with him.
Talk to me about Bonnie Raitt.
And then Bonnie Raitt after that fact. And Bonnie Raitt was one of my favorite artists that I've ever worked with, because she's the sweetest thing in the world, and her brother was one of my dearest friends in the world.
who lived here in Minneapolis and who was a sound man.
He was
Steve
a sound
Raitt.
man. Yeah, Steve Raitt was one of our dearest friends, best buddy. I mean, he lived on the lake, and that's how I met Bonnie. And we had the band, the TC Jammers, that we mentioned before, was one of her mainstays. When she would come to town, she would use that band as her, as her backup band for her to do a solo gig. So that's how I got to know her. And then Steve succumbed to a brain injury, a brain tumor, and but lived for 8 years, and we became very close. Steve and I did, and then Bonnie and I became very close because of that. And so I ended up kind of helping her along and trying to be as helpful as I could and playing in her band. Well, thank you very much, Bonnie.
The year Steve passed, you played with Bonnie and kind of held her up.
I kind of held her up. As much as I could. Everybody was holding her up, but I played with her before that, though. I mean, I was in the band before that all happened.
I can't keep it all straight.
I remember he was there when he kind of went down, and I was still rehearsing. I was rehearsing with her, and I remember, so I was with her for about 3 years before he passed. Anyways, that was a wonderful experience for me because she's one of my favorite singers on the planet, and songwriters, and just overall person in general, just wonderful. And then it goes on to Stevie Nicks, who was another.
Tell me how you got that gig.
After I was done with John Mayer, I was with our friend Lenny Castro, and Lenny Castro had done a few cameo appearances with John, and I was in the band for that year after we had done the record with Steve Jordan and Pino Palladino and a few other wonderful musicians. We went on tour for that whole year of that record, a year and a half or something like that. And after that year and a half was done, I had left and gone and said, well, I asked Lanny, I said, what are you going to do? Because he knew we were kind of going to be done with that scene. John kind of goes through bands like he goes through underwear.
Hairstyles.
Yeah, hairstyles. Underwear, whatever.
I should talk.
Anyways, loved doing that gig, by the way. It was a really good one. But he said, I think I'm going to go play some rock and roll with Stevie Nicks. And I said, really? And he said, wow, Stevie Nicks. Wow, that's a trip. Do they need a keyboard player? And he went, I think they do.
Really?
I went,
I don't know this story. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely, the story, man. I said,
wow.
Really? And I said, I'd be happy to do. Can you tell her that I'm interested? And he did. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't know this, but I found out that my old pal from New York, Waddy Wachtel, is playing guitar with her as the musical director of the band. And an old friend of mine, besides Lenny, was Carlos Rios, who played with, he played with
everybody.
Me, played with everybody. But he did Brother to Brother. He did Gino Vanelli. He did Gino Vanelli's record, which was wonderful. Anyways, so these guys are in the band, and excuse me, who is it? Waddy calls me up and says, you got to come if you're really interested. They were going, really, you're interested in doing this because they think I'm a jazzer. It's like, no, I'm a rock guy first. And I said, of course. And he said, well, you got to come and audition. I said, I'd be happy to audition, man. I'm happy to do it. I think it'd be so fun, man.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, lucky for me, we were old friends, but I was there and I auditioned and I was there with a bunch of other keyboard players, and I just happened to be the guy who got the job. So we became a one big happy family. Been there for 13 years, and of course off and on with Sanborn during this time also.
Right. And
different bands and different things with you, doing a lot of stuff with you and the Peterson brothers, and doing other records, and so it's all been just a blessing, man. And I'm just happy that we're doing this together. I think I'm going to cough.
But go ahead.
I'm going to cough because I choked on this.
Did you?
A little bit.
Don't choke on the water.
Anyways, no.
Choke on the water.
Thank you.
Oh, no, I'm coughing in his face.
Right. Carvid. What do they call it?
I don't know. COVID
carver.
So you're a road dog. You've been on the road.
I have
100% of your life. since this is Music on the Run,
Yes, it is Music on the Run.
and we talk a little bit about
We're talking a lot is what we're doing.
Well,
I love it. This is great. It reminds me
this-
of the day I was... Yeah.
you have to tell this story. I'm telling you, the fans wanted to hear about you,
Oh,
so that's why we're
cool, man. I'm happy to do it.
We have to share how you survive.
I survived, period.
No, well, how you? Yeah, that's the first question.
Yeah.
How do you survive on the road? Because
Yes.
you're there all the time. You've been married for 32 years to Luann.
Yep. Yeah.
How does somebody do that when they're on the road all the time? And how
Carefully.
do you take care of yourself?
You do it carefully, man. Well, back in the early days, you didn't really take care of yourself because we were infallible. We were
Young.
Yeah.
Yep.
young,
I get
and we abused ourselves as much as possible. And,
That's
and
exactly
recovered.
what Lenny Castro said.
Yeah,
He said,
and we came back and could come back in a day and be ready to go and do it again.
right.
So what happens is the older you get, your body can't take that anymore. So I was lucky enough to not go down the dark path. So
Right.
and I saw a lot of people go away and do that and leave the planet, which is not fun for me. So I chose not to do that. And especially in the last the last 15 years, I've learned to pace myself on the road. When you're working, you go out. I have my routine down where you get up and you go to the gym. I have my banana, and I would go down to the gym and I would do my 1.5 miles on the treadmill, and then I would do my little weights, and then I would stretch, and I'd be ready for the day. And then, I'd spend about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes in the gym or whatever, not long.
Yep.
But then we'd end up going strolling. I'd take one of the guys, we always love walking, and wherever place that we're at, I would go walk. We'd walk for 3-4 miles in whatever city we're in. We would walk and stroll. Nikki and I, forget it. That's all we did. Stroll, and then go have lunch,
Right.
And then if it was a day off, then we'd start drinking. So
And that's how they survive on the road on Music
that's
on the Run.
exactly right. But you know what? You just got to pace yourself, and that's the bottom line, because my body couldn't take it anymore. It's just like there's no recovery. If you're gonna do what we used to do, there's no way you could have and maintain a gig.
Things change the older you get, doesn't it?
Oh man, and I like the way we are now, because it's we, like Billy, our brother, says, we got 5 minutes left, man. At
True.
the age I'm in, and right now we have no idea how much time we got left with this crap that's going on. So I'm happy to do it, and I'm happy to be here playing music for everybody. And cheers to you, brother. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, I'm not quite done with you yet.
Well, that's okay. You keep going, but I just want to let you know.
Well, I love you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so fun to have you. Finally, it took a little cajoling to get him on. He was like,
Yeah,
But we
it's
got him.
like Sanborn, man. Once you get him talking, he doesn't shut up.
So glad.
He's great at it, man. He taught me a lot. I love David.
What's next for you? What's the next plan?
Well, you know what? Right now, we're just finishing up with I had a plan for the Peterson brothers back about 3 years ago. We did a record. I just went in for a few days with the guys, and Billy and Paul and I, and Jason, our nephew, J.P. Delaire, he goes by, and played alto saxophone. And it's a great little funk quartet that it just sounds great, man. And we've been sitting on it for a minute because we wanted the right station to put our right genre to put it out on, or what's the word I'm looking for? Not label, but the right time, to get it out to people.
Right.
And it just never seemed like the right time.
Plus, you're busy, and everybody's traveling all over the map.
It was hard to get everybody together to finish what we started, and we're finally done with it. And I'm hoping that we can get that out, and within the next non-COVID year, and put it out and go out and tour that, with the 4 of us, man, or the 5 of us, or whoever.
Right.
We could do a whole thing that would be so great, man. But that's what's in my future. And
What about a solo record?
come
on.
and, I'm always putzing around with it. I'm putzing. I got some things in the basket, man, but nothing concrete yet.
Okay.
So,
Brother,
But,
thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, man. Are you kidding me? This is great.
This
I hope you edit the shit out of this.
No, we're going to leave it all fly.
Well,
everybody,
good. I love
Ricky
you.
Peterson on Music on the Run. Thank you for joining us. We love you. We'll see you next time. Music on the Run was hosted by yours truly, St. Paul Peterson. Recorded and produced by Davide Raso. Video editing by Ivan Sevastyanov. A very special thanks to the patrons who financially support this podcast. And remember, Rick is my brother and I've had it too.